ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Season 2 of Tigers Talk Rugby. Before we get started, once again, I would like to thank Tiger Vision for providing us with the facilities and equipment. We are still set up in their studio, and we love being here, and we love having them support our podcast. So on that note, I'm Ethan Richards.
And I'm CJ Bakle, as always. And today we have friend of the show, big fan of him, big fan of his work. You know, junior, Clemson rugby scrum half, probably one of the greatest athletes on the pitch. His name is not Tyler Doolittle.
And this is Tigers Talk Rugby.
This is. I'm glad to be here. It's good to be back. It's been a little while.
Yeah, it's been a couple months, but
I'm excited.
We're happy to have you back on.
Man, moving straight from the World Cup right into Six Nations coming soon. What an exciting time. What an exciting year for rugby.
Yeah. Well, do you know of any exciting news as of recently?
Oh, man.
I know. See, Tyler's been talking about Finn Russell a lot today, so.
Let's talk about Finn Russell.
Yeah. Honestly, I see it as an absolute win.
As an absolute win?
From an England fan, absolute win.
Okay, Tyler, why don't you give
us...
us...
a fan of Scotland, it hurts.
Yeah.
Tyler, why don't you give a little bit background what happened with Finn Russell?
So, Scotland training camp starting up, for Six Nations. They open against Ireland coming up soon. So they get to the training camp, and Finn Russell decides to go out for a drink like anyone could, That's what they do. He ends up drinking a little bit too much. Apparently he ended up going back to his parents' house after his night of drinking. There's multiple staff reported that said, hey, man, maybe you should stop drinking. And he did not. He refused. And then he missed the first day. He missed a Monday training session. So as sensible as any coach would, you got to, even if it's a player that you rely on as heavily as Finn Russell, he is Scotland's fly half. Without Finn Russell, I don't know what this team is going to look like.
It's going to be a different team.
It's going to be different. And
it's going to be a different attack structure, truly.
But, you just can't let players like that get away with stuff like that because it means it opens up the floodgates for other players potentially in that position. Yeah. And so they responded and said, okay, well, you're not going to be selected for the opener against Ireland, which I think is reasonable.
I do too. I agree. I say jokingly that it's an absolute win. But for me as a perspective in terms of how I view respecting an organization that you are participating for and competing for and working your absolute hardest to be representing, taking these kind of actions and setting yourself up for failure is not something that should be taken lightly.
It's not fair to his teammates at all. They were there. They were working hard, and he didn't show up. He could do that. And, rugby is a game of respect. You can't just treat your teammates. You're letting your teammates down when
Absolutely.
you do that. It's just showing them that they don't mean as much to you as you mean to them.
Finn Russell is kind of saying, I can make plenty of money, living and working in Paris. Okay, cool. I don't need to work with you guys anymore. Yeah. Screw Scotland.
So after learning that, he decided to fly back to Paris, where he's currently playing. And, so the head coach, he said, okay, we'd love to still have you at the training camp. You're not going to be selected, but we still want you here to help our team prepare, which, I think you should. Even if you're not going to be selected, it's for your country. Yeah. And he decided to go back to Paris. I think it's still up in the air the last time I saw whether or not he'll be returning still. Scotland's head coach has said it's still open if he decides to come back for the rest of the Six Nations. Just for right now, through this Ireland opener, Finn Russell will not be with Scotland.
My question is do you think he's at a point in his perspective where he is done playing international rugby?
No. So how old is he?
He's not. I would not consider him an old guard player.
No, he's 27 years old.
He's 27 years old, so he definitely isn't in the position to be like, you know what, I'm going to quit international rugby, or I'm going to retire from international rugby, because he could definitely have another World Cup, either one or maybe two World Cup rotations under
You've
his
seen him
belt
before at that age.
after.
He could squeeze
Yeah,
out.
it's definitely possible. So, like, why would you're kind of like cutting off, any future, relationships with the Scottish Rugby Union right now.
But I'm not saying that he's not good enough or he's past his prime or anything like that.
No.
I'm just saying, as a person, do you think there's things we don't know behind the scenes of his relationship with Scotland Rugby that could have brought him to this point where he's like, I don't care to be a part of this organization anymore?
Yeah, but it's possible, but that's just very much an internal affair that we won't know definitively until somebody blabs about somebody.
It's true. I just thought maybe, because I don't see a player who's as prominent in a international program, such as his relationship with Scotland International Rugby at this point in time, do something this extreme and this destructive of his own international career without other things that have built up to it.
I mean, like CJ said, there could be, and I mean, they obviously
it's all speculation.
Probably don't want to report on that. They probably want to keep that quiet. I mean,
oh, absolutely.
Don't want the media to know that. So we may not know until after the Six Nations. We may not know until after this regime of coaching is even out of Scotland. But I mean, I definitely see where you're coming from. I still think what it comes down to, I mean, you're there to play for your country. And if you had problems with the coaching, I feel like you'd be more vocal about it and still want to compete. So I'm still going to have to say I think it's not the right move, and I think it's disrespectful to
I 100% agree that it's disrespectful and that it wasn't the right way to handle the situation. But I just thought I would play devil's advocate in a way, and maybe there's more to the situation that is not
we actually know about.
Advertised and all that sort of. So moving on from the news with Scotland and Finn, and
we're going to move to a neighboring country.
Yeah. In big Premiership news, the Saracens are relegated.
They'll be back really soon, but it is going to be a weird year without them in Premiership. They're missing a whole lot of talent. With that being said, even though Premiership will be missing a lot of talent, they deserve it.
Yeah, 100%. It's cheating.
It's cheating. It's a scandal. They cheated. It's big news.
And you say they'll be back very soon, but they have to prove that they end up, when they move down into the lower league, they have to prove that they are going to be under their salary cap regulations for at least 2 years. They're not. It's not going to be they'll be back after next season sort of thing. There's going to be time.
I think they'll be back after next season.
They have
because
they
can
that they will consistently stay under the salary cap.
Yeah, but that's when it comes to players. But they can also throw money at other things like coaching.
That's true.
And I don't know if it's, I know it's in soccer, but I don't know if it's in rugby, but the loan system where you could be like, oh, okay, we'll give this player to another team for a year or two, and then we can have him back. So the guys like Maro Itoje and the Vunipolas, you could be like, okay, these guys are asking for a lot of money, so let's say we'll loan them out to Leicester. Okay, Leicester's not doing really well in the Premiership right now. Let's loan them out to Leicester. Leicester, you can have them for a year so that you guys don't, get relegated. You can stay up in the tables and stuff like that, and then come back, or maybe stay in the mid-table, and then come back and play for Saracens the year after that.
But even then, if they keep all of this intense, high-cost talent at Saracens, even if they loan out these players, say, they're still under their salary cap. They're not going to be able to maintain the roster that they currently have. Yeah. Even when they move down, because they have to lose the salaries. They have to cut their payments. It's no matter what they do, they're not going to be the same Saracens that they are now that is getting relegated.
Do you think with this you could see some of the Saracen players making
Jumping
that
ship?
big move to France that a lot of players are doing nowadays?
Ooh, that's a good point, actually.
I could.
Instead
I don't know how intense that will be. I don't think it'll be a wave of Saracens players leaving and going to play in France, where salary is but a number in comparison. But I see it as something that will cause a shift in the conversation of Premiership salaries.
I just want to say one thing.
Yeah.
If there's anybody who's an MLR executive listening right now, and there's any money in MLR, because I know you guys are able to pull up Ma Nanu and Matteo Passero, pick up some of these guys from Saracens, okay? I would like listen. Like that would be pretty sweet. Like what if maybe not the big name guys, but like some of the guys who maybe get paid a little more extra.
Just like Mario Toji. Little people,
Just
you know what I
casually.
mean?
Just
No.
casual.
Just be like, yo, I want to make the jump to America, play some ball, play some rugby, ball out, and then come back and play in England. I'm just saying, if you're an MLR executive, I would be flaunting my, be recruiting as much as I can over at the Saracens.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see, because I feel like, when you compare it to the NFL, which is what in the United States is the prominent sports
The
league.
number one sports
I'd
league.
say the number one.
Yeah, the number one
Pretty
sports league.
confidently.
Yeah. I don't see a lot of like brand-based players as much in terms of
Like franchise players.
like franchised players.
Oh, you mean like players who
Like Tom
will stay with the
Brady.
team and stay with the team for their entire career?
Right, like a
So like a Tom Brady
right,
or
like arguably
Aaron
like
Rodgers.
Drew
Yeah,
Brees,
yeah.
arguably.
yeah,
Larry Fitzgerald.
yeah, like those sorts of players. I don't feel like I see that as often
As it used to be.
as it used to be. And then like I want to see if current rugby prominence of and players are going to be committed to the franchise and the club that they've contracted with, or if they will do jump ship and do that sort of action.
Like go to where money is.
I mean, I
go
think
to France.
it's gonna start to shift towards that. You already saw it in New Zealand. I mean, you saw it in the whole southern hemisphere. Is the big exodus to France. And even now, I mean, I go for the Hurricanes when it comes to Super Rugby. And Bowden Barrett is now at the Blues, which I never thought would ever be possible. But he ended up leaving, and people are going to make that jump. And you can get so much more money in France. Why not? You only have X amount of years to play rugby, and you need, after that, I mean, that's your career.
Even not even just jumping teams from southern hemisphere to northern hemisphere, but like look at some of these players like Sonny Bill Williams used to play for the Blues, and now he jumped and he's going to go play for the Toronto Wolfpack in rugby league, not rugby union. Like, yeah, I see what you guys are saying, that that loyalty isn't as prominent in sports.
Yeah, I don't feel like I see it as intently at the club professional level.
Right.
Obviously, international is a little bit different, but so a kind of I feel like this gets to the question of, do you think World Rugby should step in about France's salary stance?
I mean, what would they tell them?
That's the only thing. Like, what can you do?
They can't
Be
really
like,
force them to be
no.
like, you can't pay your players this amount of money. I mean, what you've seen is other countries putting limitations now on players that move international on how much they can actually play for their own country. I think you've seen that. What was it? Wales, I think, if I remember correctly. Maybe I'm totally mistaken, but players that choose to play for like France or in a France league it's tough for them to play for their own country. After I think it's X amount. I may be completely mistaken, but
The reason why I was asking this question is because what happens to World Rugby when the bulk of strong rugby talent like converges to one league and leaves the rest of rugby around the world at a lower level?
Well,
because
I mean,
isn't that higher level of rugby supposed to be the international rugby scene?
Well, then you're just making it as if it's like super team rugby, right? So you can look over at France, it's like, holy crap, these super teams. Which it would be interesting to see, like, who doesn't want to see, you know, the best of the best of the best play against each other in a team, you know?
See, for me, that's
but
what watching international rugby is.
Yeah, but
that's why I wanted to ask this question is if this exodus continues and shifts and develops in other countries or other regions of the world where they're all moving to France to play, what happens to rugby in the rest of the world? Does it make it worse? Do they have to step up their game? Do they release their salary caps or increase their salary caps? Or what would need to change is basically what I'm getting to. I'm talking.
That's a very dynamic environment right there.
For me, it's the salary caps. It's the money. I mean,
you think it all comes down to the money?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And if you have a place that's willing to offer you, you know, twice as much to play for them, it's really hard to pass that down when you know that your career is on a time limit. You know.
Yeah.
You have X amount of years. You have to make as much money as you can before before you're expired. So.
Yeah. I just wanted to play a little bit of devil's advocate
Again.
in this concept. Yeah, absolutely. In the concept of like going back, like if the Saracens' iconic, frankly insane roster starts jumping ship to France, do you think other clubs would have players that follow? They would see, this is.
Oh, you mean like other English clubs, or are you just saying?
Oh yeah, other English clubs with other
why
phenomenal
not?
players. Like,
I mean, if the money's there and they want those players, then I don't see why not.
I mean, I wouldn't call it following because players have already been doing this.
Yeah,
so I think Saracens players would be following a trend, and I mean, you may see more players doing it. The star players, they're probably making more of that salary cap, and Premiership teams besides the Saracens are playing by the rules and maintaining that salary cap. So it really depends on.
You'd hope.
The caliber of player. I mean, Finn Russell, I know plays for France or a France team. So
everybody plays in France now.
Everyone plays in France now. No, not quite.
No, but yeah,
it's starting to look like it.
So I was just, I mean, although on the other side of the coin, which is gonna push our conversation to another topic.
Whoa. Segue.
Yeah. You do have some of the older guard players and some of the players who are now retiring from international play, moving to the MLR.
It's fun, but I don't know how big of a fan I am of it.
Yeah.
It scares me a little bit because it makes me feel like MLR could go down the path of being treated like a retirement plan for international players and not as a way to expand North American rugby.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what MLS did.
That's exactly. Like MLS brings over like old ex-stars that aren't good enough to stay where they are, but they're great when they come over here because they're better than most of.
Yeah, better than anybody else.
So you're concerned with the lack of grassroots rugby development?
I'm afraid that that's the path that we could go down. I mean, right now, it's not like an overwhelming. I mean, if you look at most of the MLR teams, I mean, I know people that have played in the D1A college that are now playing for MLR teams. It's good to see that. But it just makes me a little bit nervous to see big name European and players kind of coming over here and probably getting paid way more than.
I mean, I wouldn't mind it. I wouldn't mind it if like the road that they're taking is they're going to take all these big name players to promote the branding of MLR across the world. So they getting the Bastaros, the Matiras, the Fodens, and Nanus. You bring them over. Because everybody knows them, right? Yeah. Everybody knows rugby around the world knows those guys. And then you blow up the league over here, make it more marketable, more brandable to like rugby around the world, and then just maybe that's how they influence money, and that's how they build up like cash, and then that I guess that marketability and that brand building could then trickle down and work to the grassroots style,
what
and then
I'm
help
seeing,
bring up some of the American talent. That's I think what they're trying to go for.
So what I'm hearing is two perspectives that have a more pessimistic, to be honest,
Slippery
perspective.
slope.
Yeah,
It's a very slippery slope.
versus
yeah.
a more optimistic view of how the league will grow. So what I'm hearing is both are seeing this in front of you, and one is saying that the MLR will lose sight of one of the goals of American rugby and growth in American rugby and USA rugby as a whole, while the other one will take that growth that it's currently building through bringing in international talent to bring in the money to then put it back in and kind of circle back around, while one of your ideas, which is Tyler's, is going to just shoot off into almost a loose track in comparison to what the growth of rugby in the United States.
I mean, we don't know.
Is with the development of MLR. We don't, but it's interesting to see that like it's good that people out there like you exist, CJ, who are very optimistic in how the MLR will grow in the United States in terms of their rugby success and their rugby support and all that. And then it's also comforting to know that there are those rugby passionate supporters who are going to be critical on something like the development of a professional league in the United States, because people like that are the ones who will remind the MLR that they're like of part of their purpose.
And I mean, so right now, obviously that's in the future, and I mean, like we said, that's a little bit of a slippery slope. But right now, I think just in the current, it's good. Like, you have these international stars that have been in the game for a long time that can really be a leader, in the locker room, a leader out on the field, and give these North American guys just some guidance and improve their rugby IQ immensely. But I mean, it just makes me nervous that, there's that slippery slope where it could just turn into, retirement plans for ex-European players.
But I will say one thing. I'm really, really excited to go watch Ben Foden and Bastereau play against Rugby ATL when your Tigers Talk crew will be there.
Yeah, we're going to head down to watch the ATL rugby match.
Against
with
Rooney.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Tyler, I see you're motioning towards me. Am I going? You're welcome to join us.
Yeah.
We've been looking into tickets and all that.
I can't tell you just how excited it makes me to have an MLR team in Atlanta.
Oh, yeah. It's so great.
After pro rugby just being pretty much completely on the West Coast and just seeing it expand over here on the East Coast, New York, D.C., Atlanta, and then I know there's more expansion teams coming. It's just, man, it's great to see. I love it. And
now of this upcoming season, like with Atlanta and Old Glory, you also got the Free Jacks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's legitimately because looking into our MLR like preseason overview and our season outlook, you now have legitimately an Eastern division. Like, it is split East and West now, and I'm so happy about that.
But the big thing is that the East and West are pretty well split in terms of talent too.
Agreed.
Because like the last year, it was like, okay, it's basically San Diego and Seattle versus everybody else.
Yeah.
In terms of talent. I mean, New Orleans did have a pretty good run at the beginning of the season last year, but in terms of talent, it was those two and then everybody else. But now you see like Rooney's got talent. Atlanta's got all those life guys who have a lot of chemistry and been playing together. Old Glory's been bringing over some other.
I was about to say the Beast is now.
The Beast is Old Glory, and like Dylan Takaido Simpson, who was formerly of Colorado Raptors, is now playing for them. Like, they got a lot of talent.
And
like
shout
Toronto.
out to Jason Dom at Atlanta.
Yeah, shout out to Jason Dom, obviously MVP. Toronto, the Arrows, they have a lot of Canadian talent. Like, it looks good. I cannot wait. It's going to be very soon.
Yeah, I'm so ready to see what MLR provides for this season. So, on that note, speaking of what is provided to us with the MLR season, I'm going to put you both on the spot here with something that I didn't tell you to plan for.
Oh, boy.
I want to hear,
Did he say this
at
for us?
this current point, who do you think will end up on top? With what you know currently entering.
Oh, I thought you were going to give us a wild card.
No,
like a
no,
complete
I'm
wild
not
card.
I'm not that
This
mean.
this will be easy. You first, obviously.
So
Tyler.
who do
me
you
first,
think will
obviously. This is actually a really tough question because last year I got it completely wrong. I did not think that Seattle was going to win it 2 years in a row, and then they went ahead and did that.
Did it pretty handily too.
This is tough because some of these teams now, like DC, has the beast.
Yeah,
And you gotta love the beast. Rooney, obviously they have.
Bastereau and Foden.
Gosh,
It's awesome. I'm
okay,
excited.
Come on,
Okay,
answer
I'll
the
just
question.
say
you've
it's
got-
my favorite.
Stop
So
pitter-pattering
here,
around the question.
actually,
Answer it.
Okay.
How about this? How about this? First, we'll say who do you think is going to win the East? Who do you think is going to win the West? We'll start with that in particular,
Oh.
and
I
then
think
we'll
I got
move
it.
on. Who do you believe is going to win it all?
Oh, I think I got it.
Which is
gonna go-
obviously going to bring it to one of those two.
No, I got it.
I'm gonna
I
go
got
for
it. Easy.
I think Old Glory
Whoa!
is gonna win the East.
What?
Yeah, I'm going for that. That's my hot take.
Okay.
And then
I think-
West, I think
I think that's pretty legit. So I'm gonna talk about that a little bit real quick. Old Glory, I mean, they're tied in with Scotland Rugby we were talking about earlier.
Oh, true.
And so they have a support
have a
system
yeah.
that has been partnered with them for literally the last year while they've been building their way into playing in the MLR this season. So I see where you're coming from in that stance. Yeah. So what about the West?
what about the West? See, I really want the Raptors. I think Raptors are my favorite.
Oh, yeah, like
out
a-
West. But I think
For no particular reason, we want the Raptors to win. No bias in that one, but
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it looks like Seattle's just gonna win again. I don't know. They're just an MLR powerhouse now. They're starting the dynasty, starting it off right at the beginning. So I think I'm gonna go with Seattle and Old Glory.
okay.
Those are my two.
That's your two.
Okay. And who do you think would win that match
We'd say,
at this point when you look at those two teams?
This is gonna be completely based off of not East Coast bias like at all, but Old Glory.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
No East Coast
I
bias
just want-
whatsoever.
None.
I want Old
Not
Glory
at
to win.
all.
That's who I'm rooting for. I'm gonna support them.
Yeah.
Okay.
For me, Seattle's kind of the villain of the MLR.
I don't
And-
want them to win.
And after the expansion draft and after the end of season changes that have been going on with all of the programs, frankly, I don't think Seattle will be at the same level of competition that they were last year. I think they will, because I don't think they will have the cohesiveness that they had. I don't think it's going to maintain because of they had players taken from them in the expansion draft and because players move and shift around and coaching staff changes. I think that they will not be what they were.
Ready for my take?
Yes.
Let's go. Let's hear it.
So
Fresh.
this is what's going to happen. All right, the Eastern Conference will be dominated by one team and one people.
This is gonna be.
They will
shocking.
start. Whoa. They will start off slow. They will start off slow. I will say this: first 4 weeks of the season, they will not be playing fresh. They will be trying to gain ground. They will be trying to find their image. But the last 12 weeks of the season, they will be the hottest team in sports. It'll be Rugby United New York.
Wow.
Yep.
Big shocker here from CJ Rooney Bakle.
Are you wearing your Rooney shirt right now?
No, I am not
No?
actually.
Okay.
He does.
But anyway,
He wears quite a bit.
they will be. I think they'll win the East.
Okay.
All right.
I'll respect
Now the West.
Man,
This
we
is
are
a
not
different
going for
story.
Atlanta. I want Atlanta to win.
Oh, I want
will say
Atlanta
that.
to
I'm
win.
going for Atlanta will be my team,
But anyway,
but I
Yeah.
don't think they're gonna win.
the West. The West will be a hard-fought, grueling matchup between two big rivals in Western Conference rugby. San Diego versus Seattle. They will be battling for the top of the top seed the entire year, and it will come down to
The last week.
the last week of the season, even the semifinals between them two. And I think San Diego is going to beat Seattle solely because it's like the chip on their shoulder. They're mad from last week. They think that they should have won. They're going to be like, okay, we're going to be the big bad boys in this league. They're going to be like the evil guy. Like, they're going to be the guys who are like, they're going to win dirty and they're going to win tough. And they're going to end up being the champions of it all.
Interesting.
I think San Diego's going to come in with like pure rage and like emotion.
So what I really love about this conversation at this point is we have 4 teams selected from like winning the East and winning the West, and then winning it all. Which actually you never stated. Who
I said San Diego.
You did?
San Diego will win it all.
Okay.
They will be playing with pure rage and emotion.
Okay. So we have 4 teams out of the, what is it, total 12, that you guys have predicted to either win their conference or win it all.
I just feel like, for some reason, I'm going to be completely wrong.
Like you always are, right?
Dang.
Let's
Actually,
not go back
he
to
had the most right on the World Cup
back to the
prediction.
World
But
Cup.
Japan, I
Let's
predicted
not-
Japan. Though.
Oh my gosh, I predicted the winner of
I
the whole
hate you
thing.
for that. Okay, so for me,
Just saying it.
I'm gonna, I want to cover the same bases as you, but I'm not gonna go into much detail since both of you pretty much covered it pretty well. I think it'll be a battle in the West between San Diego and Seattle again. Although I also see a team like Glendale that has shown up in the first season and not necessarily as prominent in the last to continue pushing through to maybe surprise us. And then on the East, I'm much more obligated and willing to say, let's go Atlanta Rugby.
I want to say let's go Atlanta Rugby. I just have this feeling. I don't know if just because Atlanta sports just lets me down,
The curse of Atlanta sports.
So
Funny.
I do like it though.
The curse.
Honestly,
the Falcons couldn't do it. Rugby ATL can't do it.
wow. That's a bold
The
statement.
Braves couldn't do it either.
One thing we didn't touch on was NOLA.
Oh.
Neither
Wow.
of you spoke of NOLA.
Well, I mean, they had a
And-
great start of the season last year, but
They were hot.
they
Right.
also became
And
a
then
hot mess.
Not.
afterwards.
But I think this year, knowing where they were when they were hot and where they now looking back in hindsight where they were when they were not, yes, they can correct those errors and potentially come out and dominate things because they are also one of the, well, really, they are the oldest team on the Eastern Conference.
They are.
Yeah.
So they have more experience in this league.
Also true.
I see them potentially being a big threat in the East.
Okay.
You
Wow.
don't seem too convinced.
You don't.
CJ,
Yeah, I was
at
about to
all.
say, CJ, the look you're giving me right now is just like wrong.
CJ is 100% Rooney right now.
Well, I think it on.
There is no doubt.
You mean
We'll see.
110%?
We didn't even talk about
Reminds me of
Toronto.
Rudy.
Okay. So
That's true.
honestly,
Or the
Toronto
Free
could
Jacks.
do it. I don't know anything about the Free Jacks, but we'll see. But Toronto.
So-
I guess you make a good point about New Orleans, but again, this is going to be a fun season.
Now that we've covered that, now I want the biggest on the spot. Who do you think is going to be
Most improved.
the most? No, the most disappointing team
Oh.
in the entirety of the league. We did this for the World Cup, so I thought
That's-
I
that
might
is
as well
true, that is
throw
true.
this
You might
out
as well
here.
put it out there.
Like, do you
If
see
I
a
remember
team
correctly,
that
I said Scotland, correct? And
You
then
did.
They turned out to be
the most disappointing?
disappointing.
But yeah, so I want to hear what your thoughts are on who do you think the most disappointing Major League Rugby team will be?
Am I going first?
You're going
Sure.
first.
Okay.
I don't want to say it, but I just feel it deep down. I've already talked about it. It's just the curse of Atlanta. I feel like it's going to be Rugby Atlanta.
Dang, that's harsh.
It's harsh.
So why? Is it because
Jason,
they're
I
new
hope
to
you're
the
not
league?
listening.
Is it because they're new to the league? Really,
Partly,
genuinely.
it's just, I don't know, it's just a gut
It's a gut feeling.
It's not
You
based
don't
on
have,
fact. It's
okay,
not.
cool. Well,
I
then
fully
I
admit that.
have no respect for your decision. No, honestly,
I want to be wrong.
I
It's just a deep gut feeling.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we want to be wrong.
after you've been betrayed by the Atlanta Super Bowl. Yeah, no. Okay, so what about you, CJ?
That's a tough question.
It is a tough question.
The
because
most disappointing team?
going into this
Okay,
season,
which team do you think has the most hype? The most hype around it?
I'd say,
would say
either
it's like-
Rooney
I
or
would
Old
I would
Boy.
say Seattle.
Seattle probably has the most
They
hype.
they've consistently sold out their games for the last few seasons. They have won 2 in a row.
All right.
I think that they are the most hyped team coming in. This season.
I know this seems like a little strange. I'm going to say it's actually going to be Seattle. That's going to be the most disappointing team. But this is my reasoning. Okay?
Like as in,
They're like, everybody's going to have the expectation, like, oh, they're going to be in the final or potentially win the final and go for a three-peat, right? So when they don't do it this year, which I think they won't,
stop the dynasty.
then it'll be disappointing that everybody's going to be like, oh, okay. It's like, like, that's a little disappointing. You know what I mean? It's not
fully
solely
get
that they're
it.
going to
It's not gonna be
completely
bad.
fall off. They're not going to be bad. Like, they're not going to be trash. But, like, they might lose in the first round of the playoffs. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that happened.
I feel
So
like
if they
that
were
kinda,
to lose in the first round of the playoffs, that
Then
means you're
they-
also
see-
stating that they're not going to be number 1 seed
Yeah.
because number 1 seeds have the bye in the first round.
So this is where I'm
so?
saying. So like, look at the
Yeah.
New England Patriots, right? Everybody was expecting them to go to the Super Bowl and win it, and they're probably the most disappointing NFL team because they lost in the first round of the wild card.
yeah.
So this is what I'm saying. I'm saying almost the exact same thing for Seattle.
Okay.
I completely understand.
Interesting.
Like everybody has the expectation of them being a dynasty, and then they failed.
Speaking of the Patriots and
Oh.
speaking of dynasties, we're gonna push this conversation once
To a
more.
little bit more of a lighthearted conversation.
Well, yeah. Because I feel like we covered with good intensity our perspectives on Major League Rugby, and I forced predictions out of you guys that I know you guys didn't want to make.
I do want to say, I feel like I'm in the same vein with Rugby Atlanta. It's not that I don't think they're going to be bad. I just want them to be better. And I feel like they're not going to be where I want them to be.
Okay. So we're going to have an extra coming out this upcoming Super Bowl time frame because in the U.S. that's the biggest sports event
Yeah.
yearly, easily. So we're going to release a little segment where Tyler and CJ will be making their rosters, quote unquote, or just taking a couple of rugby players and seeing what position they feel like they would fit in and be the best player from the Six Nations to play in a football team.
So, like, everybody heard about Christian Wade, coming over as a rugby player and playing, football, American football for a little bit. So we're going to do, basically pick something similar. We're going to pick, our best or whatever players that we think will fit the best into certain positions in American football.
Yeah, and so you'll be getting a little bit of a surprise from us later this, I guess, in the cycle between this podcast and the next. So on that note, I think it's a good time to wrap up. It's been a great conversation. I feel like we covered a lot of hot topics and points. Tyler, thank you again for coming and joining us.
Always. Thank you for having me. It's always a great time.
Yeah, well, we'd
to
love
talk
having you. You're one of the best people to talk rugby with in my
Thank you.
site.
That touches my heart.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm Ethan Richards,
And I'm CJ Bakle.
and this.
Oh, wait, guys. We forgot to say one thing.
Oh.
Go watch some rugby. Go watch some rugby, guys. And if you are in the Clemson area, Clemson will be taking on Georgia Tech. Small plug for me and Tyler over here.
Yeah.
Clemson will be taking on Georgia Tech. So if you're in the Clemson area and you want to watch some college rugby, at
Come on out.
1 p.m., Clemson will be facing Georgia Tech at the pier at Clemson. So
Yeah, hopefully we can get a couple interviews with some of the players.
yeah, maybe you will. On-field interviews like we did last time.
Yeah. But yeah, so once again, I'm Ethan Richards,
I'm CJ Bakle.
and this was another episode of Tigers Talk Rugby.